I think the actual no vote, the vote against the referendum point, was not a big surprise. That was quite well flagged by polls ahead of the vote, but I think the scale was definitely a surprise. So the turnout was quite high, and actually it was a very strong no vote. It certainly wasn't as close as the Brexit vote in the UK. I think the vote itself was on a complicated referendum question that included a number of points of constitutional reform, both the Senate, cutting costs, and also the way that the upper house was going to be organised and the power that it was able to wield. And if you disliked any part of that, then you might have voted no anyway. I think the problem for Renzi was that he made it very much a vote on him. He said if he lost, then he would resign. And so it became a very personal vote on people's opinion of Renzi himself. In the short term, I think this limits the ability of the Five Star Movement to form a government in an election, because the referendum was proposing a change to the constitution that would have limited the power of the Senate. So with a yes vote, it would have actually given more potential power to the biggest party in a general election. With a no vote, actually it retains some of the checks and balances. It's a vote for the status quo. So actually the possibility of a very strong five-star win and limited controls thereafter is actually reduced. Equity markets were actually quite positive post the result, and I think this is because the no vote had been ahead in the polls, so it wasn't a surprise to markets. Maybe the scale of the win, maybe the scale of the no vote was a surprise, but actually the no vote itself was quite in the price. And where we would have concerns going forward would be over the banking reform, which is coming up in the next few weeks. So our process is very much bottom up. We pick stocks and we take account of the macro, but we certainly aren't taking decisions based on an electoral vote in itself. So in our core funds, we were underweight Italy, very much underweight the Italian banks, and where we do have positions, it tends to be stock based, very much based on the merits of that company, rather than due to our view on the macro. I think for us as European investors, we probably got used to a sort of centrist establishment order, and this is not necessarily a symptom of the rise of populism, but it is part of the string of electoral results which have been against the core establishment, and I think that's going to continue. So I think the problem for the EU and for existing centrist parties is that they have to promote more growth, they have to give more opportunities to people, they have to engage and reduce that sort of fear of immigration that some people feel is out of control, and they have to do this in an environment which is currently not giving them very much growth. So it's a difficult conundrum for them to fix. Well, this one really, in the vote in Austria was really too close to call. The polls up until the last week, when the polls were not published, up until that point they'd been very much 50-50, and it really was a coin toss. However, the vote was actually quite clearly in favour of Van der Bellen, the Green candidate, and not the far-right Norbert Hofer. So I think for Europe, and the European project, anybody behind that will look at this as very positive, because a far-right victory would have been a real embarrassment for them. For Austrians, I think they have the same questions as other European nations, and actually this is just a small part of that longer-term debate. Remember that the president in Austria, by convention, has relatively limited powers. There are ceremonial powers, and only in extremis would they be used in a more powerful way.